Welcome to the D-Shift podcast, where we provide inspiration, motivation, and education to help you transition from the challenges of divorce to discover the freedom and ability to live life on your own terms. Are you ready? Let's get this shift started. Hello and welcome to another episode of the D-Shift podcast. And today we are going to talk all things real estate, but with a person who is a real expert on condominiums. And this is something that's really relevant, especially for people that are downsizing after divorce or going through a divorce and don't want to have to deal with all the stuff associated with having a home. So I have got a specialist in here for us. And I would like to introduce you to Esha Desaiy, and she is the real estate matchmaker. Her focus is on making sure that her clients find the best possible home, condo, whatever living accommodation they want. She's based in the Miami, Fort Lauderdale area. And so lots of condos in that area. I know that for sure. So Esha, welcome. And so great to have you here.
Thank you, Mardi. It's a pleasure to be here.
And so tell us, how did you get into real estate? Because I know that's not your first career, right?
That is not my first career. That is correct. So depends how you look at it. I'm probably on my third career, which is a little funny. But I'll start from the beginning. I was meant to be a physician or go to medical school, just like a good Indian person. But that was my mom's dream. And I actually did, I was pre-med, and my major was Cog Sci at Vassar. And I worked in labs and did that. But after a couple of years of doing research, tuberculosis research, I realized that, this wasn't sort of something that was driving my passion. And long story short is I decided not to go to medical school. After that, I didn't know what to do with myself. So I obviously tested a few different opportunities, but ended up in IT sales and service at GE Capital IT Solutions. In the process, I moved to San Francisco. And long story short is then I got a degree in industrial organizational psychology in San Francisco and joined Accenture. And the bulk of my career has been with Accenture as a management consultant, working with Fortune 100, Fortune 500 companies, governments, et cetera, doing wonderful things, traveling the world. And that was a great lifestyle. But in 2018, I sort of grew tired of it and also didn't have the passion for travel as much anymore. And I transitioned. So right after I decided not to be in consulting, a little bit before that, actually, I was starting to invest in real estate personally. So I had started to, and obviously bought my own place, but also bought a couple of investment properties and learned a lot about real estate and all the nuances that are involved through that process. And when I transitioned, it sort of felt comfortable to then want to, sort of share what I've learned and become a real estate advisor and go from there. In the process, I also moved from New York to Miami Beach and really changed a lot of my life. So now I live in Miami Beach, right on the ocean, in a condo building, which I love. And yeah, it's a new life and I love it.
It's always so interesting how people get to where they are when I interview them. We all have such interesting backstories, I think, on what got us here.
It's true. And mine isn't a straight path, but it is the path that brought me here.
Yeah, neither is mine. I started out working for an excuse me, just about choked to death there. I started out working for a packing company, like meat packing plants.
Right.
And here you are. Yes. Who knows?
As a mediator. So
Esha, tell me a little bit about the whole idea. And I know this isn't quite what we had originally talked about, but it just came to mind. The whole idea of you being able to match your clients with the right type of property to buy. How do you go about doing that?
So, I thoroughly believe this, and it's kind of true of this area too. There is a right place for everybody. So I think what happens is, a lot of us are exposed to a lot of different sort of images of what these great homes look like. And then we all think, oh, that's what we want. And then it has to be this price point. And if I want to live on the beach, then I have to spend millions. And while that is true for some luxury condominiums, for example, or even luxury homes. There may be certain price points. But, the Miami Beach area or the Miami area in general, South Florida in general, offers a lot, if you want to, like, basically once you decide what it is you want, and this is the part of the consulting part of me as well that comes out, is that I really want to spend time with somebody to say, what is it that you really want? What's driving this decision to either buy or sell or invest? What is it that you're looking to get out of it? Because even from an investment perspective, different people have different goals
Right.
in terms of what they want for returns and et cetera. So what I've found is like spending that time upfront with saying, just, like, let's talk about this. What is it that you want? What's driving the decision? How often do you plan to use the place that you're buying? Because a lot of people here, especially in my area, are using it as a second home. So all of that then helps me say, okay, well, if you want to rent it, then here's kind of what you need to look at and consider. If you don't want to ever rent it, or if you want to rent it on a daily basis, then it's a whole other aspect. So there are all these nuances, and then of course the reality of what you want to put into this place comes into play. So, whether you can afford more or less, it doesn't really matter. But, everyone has an objective around, here's what I'm willing to invest, or this is my budget, and then this is what I'm trying to get out of it, and this is the lifestyle I want. Based on that, my job as the advisor is to then say, okay, well, here's what you want, and these are the places that you're going to get it, and here are the pros and cons, and here's some things that you might need to give up on sometimes. Not always. I think sometimes you can find exactly what you want. And have that consultation up front. I think that's the matchmaking part. And then the rest, I think, if we can align on those things around what you want and how to get it, the rest is just finding the right place. Even if it takes, 6 months, a year, doesn't matter.
Right.
And then making the transaction happen and helping you find the great place.
Yeah, and I think that's so powerful, because so many times, people don't do that work, and they just get something in their head like, oh, I want to live on the beach here, but they don't really stop and think, well, what are maybe some of the challenges with living on the beach, and why do you really want to, or do you really want to spend the premium amount to live on the beach, when if you lived 4 blocks over, you could get a bigger home for the same amount of money, or a bigger condo or whatever. Or
exactly. Or do you need to be in South Beach, or do you, a little bit north, which is a little bit quieter, maybe better, because I think what sometimes people get exposed to, it's like Manhattan has so many areas too, just like Miami and just like any other place.
Sure.
But like, if you really drill down, then you can say, okay, no, actually based on your lifestyle or your interests, this area might be better for you. Or, have you thought about this other place? So that's exactly right. It's so important.
So it's funny, you said that a lot of people only use those residences in the Miami area as part-time. I'm originally from Canada, so a lot of the snowbirds, like that's their big thing, right? They have a residence in Florida that they rent out. Yeah. And so that's another interesting thing, because there are, and I know we're not going to get into this, but there are tax implications if you are a Canadian owning property in the States, or I'm sure the same if you're an American owning property in Canada. So, and that income, you can get dinged in both countries.
For that's actually very true. So if you're a foreign buyer or seller, foreign sellers have a withholding tax that's held by the U.S. government. 15% is held. So there are these things that we have to consider, and so depending on your situation, again, we would talk about these things.
And that's the importance of having somebody who is a real estate advisor, as opposed to somebody who just wants to sell you a property or help you buy a property. That's something completely different.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think, having been on every side, right? And then as a consumer, when I wasn't in this field, like obviously I had certain expectations that weren't being met. And when I reflect back, it's because there wasn't enough conversation.
Right.
I didn't say, hey, this is what I want out of you as well. These are my expectations from you as a service provider. And it's true for a CPA, lawyer, or any other kind of, service industry, where if you don't kind of align on your expectations and your, basically the client and the service provider expectations, then there's always going to be like missteps. And that's kind of the key is get to know, get to know each other. People are, when you meet people initially, people are sometimes not willing to tell you everything about their life, but there are ways to slowly build that, comfort level and trust as we go.
Sure, sure. And I know you are a condo expert. So, and I thought this would really tie in nicely because I know a lot of, particularly, older men and women going through divorce quite
Yeah.
often don't want to have the added cost and expense and maintenance and upkeep and work and everything else of owning a home. And a condo makes a nice option. And a condo in a beautiful tropical place is even
It's a
nicer.
fabulous option.
So,
No, I
so, Isha, what's the difference? What are some of the things that you need to focus on? Maybe about living in a condo, because I know you work with people to decide if condos are really the
right
right
fit for
option.
them. No, and so, I have to sort of be honest. I've only lived in a home as slash townhome once in my life. Like I've grown up in apartments and condos just because I've lived in large cities like New York, San Francisco, Miami, it's Bombay. So I love condos. And I know though, however, it takes a bit of getting used to, especially if you come from a nice large home to move into a condo, because there are differences. So the biggest thing is that in a condo, you're literally living in a community, and you do have neighbors that are quote close by. I mean, you don't need to hear everybody. You can put soundproofing and all of that sort of stuff. So that's not the biggest thing, but there are neighbors, like, in an elevator, in the common areas, you're going to see people. I would say that, so that's the part that people need to sort of get over a little bit, or that's the biggest hurdle, because especially if you had a nice large home, 4 bedrooms, 5 bedrooms with like a large yard, and that was your kingdom, this is a little bit different. The pros from my perspective is, one is the overall like the actual purchase price may actually be less. You can certainly also get some really nice views in a condo that you can't get in a house, or unless you have like a water from home but even then, some condo views especially in this area, as in a high rises, are beautiful. Like it's water unobstructed, whether it's ocean or the bay, so it can be very beautiful. The other is the amenities. So you can get a pool and you can get a gym, and many of the newer, like built after 2000 buildings it's essentially a community in itself. They will have business centers, and they will have even convenience stores and sometimes restaurants attached to it. So it's literally like you don't ever have to leave. And from an upkeep perspective, so there is a maintenance cost. So the flip of having a condo is that, once you buy a home, people think, okay, that's it, and I don't have any monthly payments, but you do have the maintenance on a monthly basis, I think. You still have insurance and you still have taxes. In a condo, you do have insurance, but your insurance is less, or part of it is covered in your maintenance fee. Your amenities are covered in the maintenance fee. There's generally security, doorman, things like that. And so there are these like concierge level services that are part of that maintenance fee, and it's a different lifestyle. So now you can call somebody, if you get locked out, or if you need some packages brought up, or it's like make a phone call and everything is available to you. That can't be available in a house necessarily unless you have that level of staff.
Right.
So I think the biggest thing is that, yeah, you're living in a community. The building is kind of now your home. You do have a unit in the building, and you can be the king of your unit, but then you have access to amenities that you may or may not have in a home. And, I do think that you can develop friendships and things like that. So it's sort of like if you are single, for example, man or woman, you can meet people
Sure.
at the pool and hang out with them, or at the beach and hang out whenever you feel like it.
Right.
So I think it makes a lot of sense, especially if you don't want the hassle of maintenance.
Yeah.
Because you have to do nothing. I mean, you pay for it, but you have to do nothing in terms of keeping up the pool or the gym or anything like that.
Right. And that's what I was going to say, because some of these new condos, like I love that you brought up that they're like that community. I was reading online about a new condo. Now it wasn't in Florida, but I can't remember where it was, but they had like, there was a dog park, and they had in-house dog groomers and dog walkers. And if you were going on vacation, they had somebody who was security vetted that would come in and water your plants, and that was all part of your fee. And they even had like in-house chefs. If you were having a party, you could just call them up and say, hey, I'm having a party for 12 people, and they would come and do their chef thing and make your party really
Yeah, no.
fantastic. And that was all included as part of the condo fees. So
Yeah, no, there's some amazing, I mean, that place sounds amazing. There over here also, there's some amazing places that I can mention. Like there's a new company called The Well that's all about the wellness. They're creating a condo, so the membership to this wellness community is included. So you can do yoga, Pilates, all that, all the classes you want. They will do diet consultations, but the condo itself has like a sauna. It has water filter systems in your shower, and like the entire water
right,
supplies. It has filtration. So this level of living that you want, this is whatever level of living I would say that
right.
you want is possible. I would say more in a condo than sometimes in a single family home.
Yeah, and I do I as somebody who lives in the country, that whole idea of neighbors really
I
kind of
know.
freaks you. I can't even see my neighbor's house. Like it's really nice.
I know, I know. You can, but see, the thing is, you can get lost or like you can talk to nobody for days and days. In a condo, there are condos I know, like the staff will look out for you. So if they don't see you in 2 days, they'll come and knock on your door because they want to make sure you're okay, especially if you're, a little bit not well or whatever the case may be. So
Yeah, yeah.
you have that, it's like the pro and the con.
Well, and I think as I get older, though, like something like that is more appealing than maybe as, and I know, but I do know that a lot of families, there's family condos as well, where there can be
Oh,
3, 4, 5 bedrooms in a condo now. So,
yeah, yeah, no, condos can be large
yeah,
and you can combine units or you can have all your entire like cousins, everybody have different units and you're all living there. Like then it's your own community. And I mean, my building has that. Like there are people whose entire sort of family and extended family lives in
right.
this building and they hang out all the time.
Well, and it's just, I just think it's a neat idea, especially for, like I said, somebody maybe who is going through what they call the gray divorce, where they're a little bit older. Maybe they want to get away. Maybe the community they're living in now just has that bad vibe thing going after the divorce. And it's a way to have a fresh start,
I
someplace
agree.
new and potentially appealing.
I
Um,
agree. I also think like from a travel perspective. So like,
yeah,
if people are healthy into, which is really good, into like,
80s
whatever you
even.
consider
Yeah.
your older
80s,
age, 70s,
90s,
80s,
people are
whatever you want to
traveling
say.
now.
I mean,
Yeah.
there are 100-year-olds that are probably more active than I am, but leaving that aside, if you want to be able to travel, yeah, you just lock up. You know that your home is secure. Nobody's going to come in. Like you said, if something needs to be done, delivered, and somebody will bring it in. So there's that level of like, I don't have to worry about my house. And oh, what if like the weather turns or if there's a hurricane? Like anything happens in a condo, all these things are taken care of. So you can freely travel, you can freely live the way you want to live and do what you want to do.
Right. And that is a good point because a lot of people in retirement, that's their goal, right? Is to be able to travel. And so not
Yeah,
having a house to tie you down is really
exactly.
important. So let's tap into your expertise for the next 5 minutes or so that we've
Okay.
got here. What are some of the things that if you are interested in buying into a condo and you've never had any experience with buying a condo, what are
Yeah.
some of the things that you sort of walk your clients through?
So assuming all things equal, there is a difference between quote an older building versus a newer building. Sometimes it's as simple as price point difference, but assuming price point is the same, sometimes a newer building is better. Sometimes an older building is better if it's gone through what we here call a recertification process, where they've done some structural work, they've changed the doors and windows and things like that. So I think the age of the building matters. Certainly location for any real estate matters, and I think, there's Miami, but then there's Sunny Isle, and all of this is along the beach, right? So then there's Sunny Isle, there's Bar Harbor, there's Fort Lauderdale. So depending again on who you are and your lifestyle, I think location is key. Because you can be on the water no matter what any of these areas are. And I think then, so, location goes with lifestyle, so the age of the building. And the other thing it really is, what I'm going to say is a little bit about how the building is managed. Now, it's hard to know that unless you, again, work with someone like me who knows some of these buildings and kind of a little bit of the backstory. I will say there's no such thing as a perfect community, and the best way to sort of make your community better is to get involved. So even if you don't get on the board, watch what they're doing, participate in a meeting so that they know that they can't just get away with whatever they want to do. Because there are some buildings that have that kind of issue. But when you're buying in the financials of the building, how well it's kept up, the staff, are they friendly? There are some soft things and there are some hard things that you can really assess. Are you going to feel comfortable here?
Right.
So it's the age, it's how the building is managed, and location/lifestyle is what I would say are the important things.
Are there any like big red flags that if you see them, you should just really seriously think about whether you even want to look at the unit?
Well, so the short answer I'm going to say is that you rely on someone like me to tell you, okay, this seems like a good price, but this building has this issues. You may still want to, make a decision to buy it because you're willing to take the risk. So again, but like that knowledge of, because some things they're never going to be on paper. And there are just some things that we know because we're here talking. We know what the management is. We've been in these buildings in and out all the time, so we know how they are and how they're not. What's the pro? What's the con? The biggest red flags would be, if you go in, for me at least, I will say, if the staff is extremely rude, even just when you're trying to look at properties, to me that becomes a red flag. I'm not saying it doesn't mean don't do it. It calls for look into it more, but I think sometimes the red flags are like how you feel when you enter. And if it doesn't jive with you, it's not the right place.
Okay, that's a really good one. And for me, and I don't know anything about condos, but for me, it would be like, how clean is it? Does it look like it's well maintained? Are the lights out, not on, and in certain homes?
No, absolutely. Oh my God, yeah, that's like the basics.
I was thinking, I know you're thinking on a different level, but something really basic, even like that. So
yeah, no, absolutely.
That's really. What about? And now I have a friend who just recently bought a condo and got really messed over in the deal. This wasn't in Miami. As a matter of fact, was on the other coast. And what happened is they bought into a building and got a great deal because they were told that the building was being sold to this new management group and that all the building was going to be upgraded. So she bought into this condo with the understanding that within a year, she would basically have this fully upgraded, all new appliances, Corinthian leather, whatever's, marble countertops, and nothing happened. And then she had to go through this whole lawsuit process, and it's still in the courts, and she doesn't have enough money now to move out and buy another place. Is that common? Does that happen often, or is that just kind of a really weird experience?
That is a little bit weird experience. The thing that also I'm not sure about in what you said is that you said that a management company was buying it. So I
mean, a different ownership group was the management company that was managing the property told her that the owners were changing and that if she bought in now, she could get the building owners were changing. And if she bought in now, she would get all the upgrades that the new owners were promising. And then that whole deal fell through.
Well, that's why, again, it's a little strange because a condo, each unit is owned individually. It's not necessarily an ownership group.
Right.
It may have been a co-op.
Maybe.
But even with the co-op, and they may have a lot, like they may have had a greater stake or something funny is going on there. So I'm not really quite sure because in a condo, you can change the board and there's elections every year, and you can change the management company that the board has hired to maintain and upkeep and things like that.
Right.
But all of that is, in theory, all of those decisions are reviewed by the community. So you have voting power. And obviously not always your vote counts. I mean, what you may want and it may not always happen. But in general, you can definitely at least see like what is being promised and how they spend the funds. So because there's an operating budget that's created out of the maintenance fee, right? So let's say your maintenance fee is 1,000 and there's like 400 units. That's a $400,000 per month operating budget that's paying for salaries mostly, but plumbing, insurance, all this sort of maintenance stuff. So in theory, you can check how that's all being spent and then validate that. Now there are several incidents where we have sometimes of like, funds not being spent properly, or like someone in the board is a contractor and they're getting all of the work and they're not vetting the right contractors and things like that. So this is where I say you have to get involved and make sure like at least if they know that you're watching or interested, then they're not going to blatantly do things that are wrong. They may still do some things that are wrong, but then that's why Most boards, they have elections every year, and you can change the board members, you can be on the board, all this sort of stuff. So in your friend's situation, I still don't understand how like a management company had ownership of all this, and like how they promised all of that, and when she was buying it
I
individual
didn't
units, so
understand
I
it.
really don't get it either. So unfortunately, I can't answer that.
That's okay. You gave a really good answer to probably a better question that I could have asked anyone else. I appreciate that. And I don't, like I said, she was telling me this, and I'm kind of, well, it's in a lawsuit, so it'll eventually work its way out. So obviously, whatever.
I hope so too. I hope for her sake, because it sounds like she was promised a bag of goods, so to speak, and
exactly.
May not turn out to be. Yeah.
Esha, we have covered a ton of information, and I know, and I so appreciate you sharing all your wisdom about this condo, because like I say, downsizing is a big thing for a lot of my clients. So what do you think is the most important thing to think about from all the things that we've talked about?
Well, and what I'll say is, since you mentioned the word downsizing, and which has sometimes a negative connotation, but again, I'm kind of used to this, but yes, a condo is going to have less space for all your belongings. So there is this element of getting your mind fit to that. Like, not to say that there aren't large condos available. And of course, if you want a large condo and you can afford it, great, let's do it. But for most people, I will say it makes sense to, move from like a 4-bedroom to a 2-bedroom, because now their kids are not there, they're alone, whatever the case may be. And so they're getting your mind around, moving to a small place, and also getting rid of some of the things that maybe you don't use all the time, not putting it in storage because that doesn't help. I mean, these are things. So, that process of starting to prune your life is the first thing that you probably want to come around to. And then the only other thing I will tell you is that there are a great many choices, and there's nothing that you need to compromise on. So whatever you want a tall building, you want a short building, you want 3 neighbors, you want 50 neighbors, whatever you want is possible. And fortunately, I can say here at every price point. So I will never say price is the determining factor. So really, what is it that you want? How is it that you want to live? And it may be, what is it that you want to do for the next 5 years? Because it's hard for people sometimes to say, oh, what do I want for the next 20 years? Or at least someone like me, at least since I've changed careers so many. So what do I want for the next 5 years? And come to terms with that and then go for it. I think anything is possible. I feel, like we live in a great time where we can live the way we want and do so many great things. And so I encourage everybody to sort of expand their mind and, say, okay, what would the next 5 years look like?
Yeah, I love that idea of just being open to the possibilities. And I want to say something I learned is the whole importance of working with a real estate advisor. If you are not really sure exactly what you want, or maybe you want to try something new,
especially in a new town, where you don't know. I mean, even in your own town, it would be helpful, but I know you can see all the property information online, but all these nuances, you'll never know until you talk to somebody who will give you the honest information.
Exactly. Great. That's another great piece of advice. Esha, if people want to reach out to you, what is the best way to do that?
Well, I'll just give my number. And you really feel free to call or text. It's 305-772-0007. So I'm 0007. 305-772-0007. And then my email is esha.d as in dog @compass.com. If you may even be able to find me if you just do a search, but if nothing else, they can reach out to you, Mardi.
Absolutely. Yeah, they can contact me and I will happily pass on this information. Esha, thank you so much for sharing all this information. It's been wonderful speaking with you.
No, thank you for this opportunity, really. And I hope this is helpful for your community and your audience.
I know it is. And I'd like to thank you all for listening in to this episode of The D Shift. And don't forget to tune in again next Tuesday. Thanks for listening and supporting the D Shift podcast. If you would like to attend live trainings by our amazing guests and have a chance to ask questions and get answers from our experts, join the D Shift crew. For more details and to sign up, head on over to www.divorcecoachforwomen and click on the podcast page.